Okay, we're going to open our meeting. It is 6:03 on September 9th. We are in the Public Safety Building at 105 North 4th Street in Gunter. We are here for a Gunter's Council special meeting for our budget hearing and others. And we do have a quorum. All notices have been posted properly. So we are going to open this up with our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. Bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful again for having the ability to meet like this and to offer prayers, Lord. We invite you into this room. We pray for wisdom and knowledge, Lord. We pray for peace in our country, and we pray for the protection of the men and women who serve to provide that protection, Lord. We're thankful for all these things, and we recognize we have been blessed as a country, and Lord, we're thankful for it. Let us not forget that gratitude, Lord, in everything we do. In the name of Jesus, amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
with citizen comments. So council invites citizens to speak. You'll have up to 3 minutes. Only at the podium, state your name and address for the record. And we are unable to respond to or discuss any issues that are brought up during this section that are not on the agenda. So sorry. And other than to make statements of factual information. So I do not have any citizen comments that are not on the agenda. So we will close that out at 6:05. We're going to move on to agenda item. Obviously, agenda item number 2 is just explaining how you can speak on agenda items. We are going to open up the public hearing right after a presentation. So I think that we do the presentation. We might answer questions for anybody that might want to speak during the public hearing. We'll do that afterwards. So let's go ahead and get started. Does everybody have your presentations? You've got yours printed out, William. Everybody else good? Got this? You're looking at me funny. Are you good? I'm going to do the presentation, then I'll open the public hearing. Because it just makes more sense to present first, because I may answer some questions. And then we'll open it up, and whoever wants to talk, we'll absolutely do that. So I'm going to start out with a slide that you guys have seen before. And that is this next one here, city funds. Go back through this real quick. City accounts are organized into separate self-balancing funds. Funds are organized by fund type and then categorized by specific purpose. The general fund is for general uses. That's what we are working through today with our budget. An example of those categorized fund types would be general fund, and then of course we've got our departments with admin, police, fire, such and such. The budget includes the revenues and expenditure of each fund. The adopted budget is the legal authority to spend available resources. So what we put into these departments is what we spend it. We're not going to reclassify things without coming back in an open meeting to do that. The taxpayer deserves to know what we're doing with their money. The available resources of a fund include the current revenue plus any available fund balance. So we're going to go into the fund balance summary, but first I'm going to give you kind of an agenda for this presentation so that we stay on track. One is the budget process. We're going to talk about the fund balance, we're going to talk about debt, and then operations, because that's how our taxes ultimately that cover this budget are separated. So we're going to talk about how we calculate those things. The tax rate. We are not going to talk about taxes tonight. And when I do open the hearing, this is for budget only. This is not for taxes. So the only thing I'm going to mention about tax rate tonight is only as it relates to the budget. There are values. We adopted the Grayson County Certified Totals at our last meeting. And then we are going to talk about the rate, and then the rate is what produces the levy. The levy is what covers our budget. That is it. We are not going to talk about anything other than that. If you have questions about taxes, then especially especially for citizen comments. You'll join us on the 19th and we'll have a hearing on that. Budget funding losses, we're gonna talk about some of the challenges we had. The budget review by department, we're gonna go over those one more time. We did make some changes and not very much, but budget decisions, I'll open up to you guys. Once we close public hearings, then we'll go over all of our questions and discuss it before we adopt. We do have to, by law, we have to adopt it tonight. We can always amend later. Okay, so the budget process. This is our fund summary. We've kind of gone over this a few times. You guys have kind of, understand this. This is, the general fund is what we are working on for our purposes. Some of the other funds we really can't even touch. Some of them we can, and we'll talk about doing that throughout the year. A lot of it applies to Adam and streets and infrastructure. But I do want to point out, we've got the general fund, and then of course the EDC fund, totally separate. That's why all of EDC's budget will come through that one. We're not going to touch that at all. We don't do their budget for them. We don't have the authority to set their budget for them. They're going to do that tomorrow night. So for our purposes, we're working in the general fund. We do get some of the TERS back, and our fund balance is starting at $1,346,000. The revenue that we anticipate after all departments in the budget is 2838, so 2.8 million, and the expenditures are also 2.8 million. So the difference there is $3,267. So once we start going through departments, keep that in mind. That is where we are on the budget. Does anybody have questions before I move on, you guys?
I just want to be clear that the projected fund balance ending and the projected fund balance beginning, we don't spend because it's 6 months of reserves.
It's our reserve. Those are our operating expenses that we would be really irresponsible to try to tap into that if we don't absolutely have to. So let's go. Now, tax rate calculation data. So when I say that there's two parts of the budget, this is the debt section, okay? We know what we are gonna pay in principal and interest and other fees, and that's gonna total the $299,000. That's what we have to cover. And when the county produces our tax rate, they break that down into debt, and then we choose the rest of that in maintenance and operations. But they will tell us exactly what we need to cover our debt. We can't stray from that. So we're gonna talk real briefly about the value, the rate, and the levy. Now, you can see at the top, the total value that the county has come back with is the $406 million, all right? That is after the freeze. That is adjusted for the freeze. Can you see that okay on your printout version? Okay. Now, you take that number, half of that is the tax increment. So that $183 million is the value in the bridges, because that's within the TERS. Now, we can't, you have to separate those when you're calculating it, because we only get to keep half of this down here from the TERS. We're not gonna go into those calculations, we've already done it, but we will do it on the 19th. So that's the value of the debt, and then the value in general. So basically, I pulled these little snippets from the worksheet. This is Form 50856. The county signs this once they calculate our numbers for us. And that first part is showing the current year no new revenue tax rate. And that's right here, the 0.493101. At the bottom, you've got your current year debt rate. That won't change no matter what rate we adopt later. And then your current voter approval rate down here at the bottom, which is the 0.564373. Okay, so if the no new rate produces a levy that covers our budget, we set the debt rate, right, according to what it is, and then the maintenance and operations covers our budget. Great. But if the no new revenue rate does not cover our budget, then we have to either reduce the budget or we have to choose a tax that's higher than the no new revenue and choose the voter approval rate, which is the maximum increase without any election. Does that all make sense? Without going into taxes, because we can't talk about that tonight. But property tax is not the only thing that our budget is, that covers our budget. Sales tax also does, and bonds. Of course, we don't have any of the bonds right now. Those are spent. So we have those two sources, primary sources of covering our budget. Now, the property tax notice that we posted was the not to exceed rate, and that's what we published in the paper. That's what we posted a few weeks ago. So just put those numbers in there one more time. The difference of this, here's where we're working with our budget. It's either gonna be the no new rate, we're gonna bring in 1.8 million to cover budgetary, our debt and maintenance and operations, or we're gonna bring in the 2 million, okay? So that's a difference of the $218,000, 550. So just keep that in mind. We know what we're gonna get pretty much. We can estimate our sales tax. So our property tax is gonna be the other side of that, but just know that the difference in the two is gonna generate about $218,000. All right. So now we're gonna move into our funding losses. We had some challenges with this budget because there were a few things that went wrong. One, it is what it is. Sales tax that we have to return to the state of Texas is 1.9 million and 50, so almost 2 million. We collected that. If you'll look at the third column, 2019, 2020, we started collecting sales tax on businesses that were not supposed to be paying it in the city. They thought they were supposed to pay it. So that was the month of June of 2020. That was actually, the blue that you're seeing here is when Rick Chafin was hired as city manager. We started collecting the following month. Now, if you look at the difference when you got through the fiscal year, which he would have been doing budget coming in May, June, July-ish, we're talking about budget, right? So I don't really see a concern here, like, it jumped from 300,000 to 471 in 1 year. A new city manager is maybe not gonna catch that. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt there. You may not really recognize that being brand new. But then the next year, 2020 to 21, the pink there in July is when Lori came on board. It's her job as finance director to look at these numbers and kind of calculate where have you been in the past, where you're going in the future with sales tax. To me, if I had looked at this and I went from 300,000 to 471 in the next year to 960, but we didn't grow anywhere, I'd want to know what happened. So that's a huge jump. You look at 21-22, and it was 1.8 million received, nothing changed, no new business. You gotta wonder where that's coming from. But I guess it just, 960 to 1.8. Well then, in 22-23, if you look there in June, that's when the state did the audit. They found the error with the company, and then went, oh, but by the way, the city of Gunter's not even supposed to be getting city sales tax, right? Because you're not in the city. So we have since annexed them in, but this is when it stopped, is that last shaded area. So 35 months of using funds that didn't belong to us. Well, now we have a problem because we only have 8 years to pay it back. So it comes right out of our sales tax, and you can see the difference. Look at, July, when they, once they started taking out, because all up before it's 164 a month, 193 a month, 179 a month. Now we're dipping back down 125, 115, 141. Anyways, you can see that right there, that 1.8, those 4 months difference went down to 1.7. So we've dropped here quite a bit. And then if you look at now, I literally updated this as of August. We don't have September's in yet. We won't until the end of the month. But you can see that we've lost quite a bit. So 1.7 was a hit coming down from 1.8 because the trend, we were doubling, right? But now we're at 1.1 million. That is a loss of $583,000. Now that is split between, that's half of that would have been ours, and then streets and EDC both, each lost $145,000-ish. Ours was 300. So not only did we lose sales tax, I think probably part of this is the market, because it can't be all just what they're taking out to repay, but it is what it is. The total loss of that was pretty impactful because we depended on that money. For 3 years, we've used it. Now, not only do we not have it, and the market's gone down a little bit, but we're also paying back. So we're gonna feel some pain for about 8 years. But, yes.
So, just for point of clarity, 2020 through 21, 21 through 22, that was accounted for in the budget. They were counting on that money.
Yes, that money is in the budget.
Right.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
we kind of,
When they were creating the budget, they
Yeah.
had that in there.
Yeah, because they expected to be able to use it, and they did use it. Yeah, they used it. And I know that there's been some talk out there, well, we corrected this, and honestly, we haven't yet. We haven't ratified that because that was never brought to council. So I did confirm with the controller's office, 8 years is it, they're not gonna give us any more, even though when we last spoke, it was 1.6 million, now it's 2. They didn't extend it, they're not going to, it's the best deal we're gonna get, so we're gonna have to ratify it. I'll bring that back to a meeting.
is that like 17,000 a month?
It's more than that, and I've gotta figure out the way that, this one I was asking you earlier is, or last night.
Yeah, there's not a breakdown, I went back. and
There's not a
checked it.
breakdown.
It just tells me what they take off the top, and this, for
Exactly.
July and August, I think it's like 31,000 something.
Yeah, so there's
Went from
something weird about
17
that,
to
because
31.
that 1.6 was around 17, 18, and now with the additional 250 that took us to 2 million, it's like close to 30. I'm like, something's not right there.
Do these 2023, 2024 numbers, are they just the loss of having the revenue taken out, or do they also include the repayment?
That is the repayments included in there.
So
Yeah.
this is what.
That's why you can see the nosedive down.
Unless we get more business, this is what we're looking at for the next 8 years to get paid back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's a hit of not having them, and
It's a
Right.
$600,000 hit, it looks like.
it is.
Yeah.
It is, because you gotta think, when we were using this money, you're using virtual money that you don't have. So moving forward, if you don't have it and you have to pay back, it feels like it's twice the penalty, right?
It is twice.
It is twice the penalty.
Yeah.
So that right there is a huge problem for our budget. With the work that we did in our workshops and cutting everything bare bones, each department contributed to this. We did really good. If this weren't a problem, we wouldn't even have to consider.
So between 2019 and 2021, it looks like a $1.4 million jump in sales tax revenue.
Right.
Was the property tax rate adjusted during that time to reflect this
No.
increase?
We've increased it every single year as far as I could go back.
The property tax has gone up every year?
Yes.
before
I'll bring that to you on the 19th. I've got a whole chart, everything that I pulled from the controller's office. In fact, we are the very smallest percentage of increase since 2019 that I've verified, so.
And then 2020, whatever, before they changed it, what was it, 0.67?
Yes, but it depends on value, so you gotta look at the total overall levy and how much it went, so you can't really just look at rate. The rate's based on the levy, so I'll explain all that, and I think you guys will feel a whole lot better about what we're doing here. But at the end of the day, this is our biggest problem with our challenge for the budget, is we've lost so much money that, I mean, it's gonna hurt. It hurts streets the most. EDC had kind of been stockpiling anyway, and since there were other issues with things that aren't gonna actually come out of the budget now, they're really kind of where they were, cause we're just leaving it this way. They'll pay it back like we're paying it back. They get to keep their funds. But they would be getting more. It's streets that's gonna be impacted, and that's Adam's world.
So I know
And he's got so much work to
we
do.
got the 8-year plan to pay it back,
8 years is the best we're gonna do.
but this budget that we put together is gonna, it's almost like a true up. It's a 3-year delta that we've consolidated. And
Yes.
so we get through 25, and then we're gonna be sitting in a lot better shape in 26.
Absolutely, absolutely. If we keep doing what we've done, and that's we really went back to that zero-based budgeting where every department went back and did everything they could to pool it, then we started adding things back in that were absolutely necessary. So this is our sales tax problem. There's nothing we can do about it except move forward knowing that this is gonna exist for a little while. And what we can do though is get our EDC very active. We are already, with Eric's help, generating more development. We've got so much coming our way, but it takes a little while. I mean, right? Forney Fence hadn't been built yet. O'Reilly's is on the way. Next year we'll have more sales tax and we should continue to grow that. This is where we have to focus. I'm not a fan of property taxes either, so if we can do more in our sales tax and generate more, that way, it changes the game.
So that's why it's important that the citizens approve
Street tax,
the street tax rate in
yes,
November.
because we cannot afford to lose that.
So is it safe to say that if we get that, then we can reduce the tax rate, the sales property tax rate?
There's a very good chance of that, yeah. But we have to be very careful. We cannot take any risks. We can't take any more hits. We just can't. So we're gonna go budget review by department. I'm gonna have to minimize this and open up my departments. We're gonna go through these real quick. I know we've looked at them so many times, but for example, admin, department number 1. Oh, I should have asked, hold on just one second. Well, I'm trying to get this to come on up there. Let me do this. Yeah, I was trying to exit out of it.
There you
Okay.
go.
Alright. Are we in admin? There we are. Okay. So I know it's still kind of hard for you guys to see, but I did highlight some things that we had talked about. You know, salaries, longevity pay, payroll, TMRS, salary reserve, all of that is our staff, who, by the way, are absolute rock stars. They are doing everything that was being done before, fewer people, and doing it better. So thank you, Deidre and Eric and Adam and Rebecca and Bethany and Jamie are not here, but this is a solid team of staff. We've saved a lot in the admin area of personnel, and I mean, God, these guys are working harder than they ever have before, but they're doing it well.
Mayor, can you zoom in and maybe scroll just because it's really hard to see from back here?
Yeah, I'll see if I
It's
can a little bit more.
Thank you,
All of this was in the packet
Thank you.
too, so if you wanna go back and
thank you.
you'll be able to see it. So anyways, yes, we've saved quite a bit here in salaries on this end. Now, there were some departments that increased. We talked about all of that. We'll go through each one at a time. Attorneys, I do have something very interesting to show you guys because I pulled all of the information. And there's been a lot of talk about how we are bankrupting the city because of our attorney fees. We're not doing that, are we, Courtney?
I hope not.
She's like, I'm not getting paid enough.
Right? She's like,
This is a shocker.
Where's mine, right? So, with attorney's fees, one of the things that we've been able to do is, first of all, Courtney's incredibly efficient, which is nice. She asks me before we take off on projects. She asks counsel before she takes off on projects. That's nice. Once a month, we sit down and we have office hours, and she goes home with her head ready to explode pretty much because it's like we're vultures on, on an animal, dead animal in the street going, we need this and this. But what it allows us to do is, as a staff, be on the same page. Everybody hears it all at the same time. Deidre gets what she needs, Eric gets what he needs, Adam gets what he needs. We go through everything. Chief comes in, so we've got police department on board. Everybody's invited to come in and just get all done. And that allows us to be very efficient. So I just want to show you, what I did was I went back from May of last year, so we could get a whole full, fiscal year. When I came on board, that was May of 2023. And this goes through December of 2023. May through December was Messer Ford. We spent $99,000 on legal for city matters. 7 months, averaging about $14,000 a month. Then, William was hired as interim. He stepped in for a little bit. That was December through February, about mid-February, and we spent $5,000, averaging $2,000 a month. And there were some crazy things happening during that time. City Matters here for Nichols Jackson, we hired Courtney on February 16th, and we are at $40,000, so an average of $58.49 a month. Even giving all of the challenges that we've had to request her help for. And I think that, did we not put 8,000? Wait, what did we put? Let me go back to the budget and I'll tell you. Was it 85?
Yeah, we put 85.
That we were kind of putting in the budget thinking that we might need. So right now we're trending at 58 a month. We'll leave that budget there because we never know. We want to be safe with that. But we are not bankrupting the city or raising taxes because of legal fees. Is that
Also-
pretty crystal clear?
I also want to point out that the old budget was 65,000, and just
And yeah.
May through December of that year, they spent 99,000, and then the 5,000.
Right.
I mean, it's not, this is more fiscal year, I mean, not fiscal year, but this is
Right.
calendar year, but I just want to point out, that's not 65,000.
No, we went over that, and I recall I was the only one that ever brought it up at a meeting, like, hey, wait a minute, we have to fix this problem. So, that's where we are on attorney's fees. I know a lot of people have been asking about that, and, so anyways, there it is. Let me look at, we're gonna go back in to admin.
60% less.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's attorney's fees, and then insurance, man, I mean, we can't change that. It is what it is. We're at the mercy of what it is, so,
That's TML.
this is all of our other insurance.
It's not TML.
Right.
It is, you know,
It is TML. Okay.
It's TML on like,
Property.
property, equipment,
vehicles,
not,
So it's TML plus
not personnel.
liability insurance.
it's everything,
It's
Yeah.
everything.
everything.
all of our vehicles, all of our buildings, all of our equipment,
Property,
our stuff for,
park.
yeah.
It's the umbrella.
It's everything, except for health insurance, which is above, and that is payroll, the health insurance is up there under payroll taxes right there. Let's see what else, electricity, water, gas, cable, telephones, that's the kind of stuff that we just, we're at their mercy. It is what it is. This is what everybody's experiencing at home too, is that rates are going up, inflation. Now, this miscellaneous expenses, that's where we just kind of built an annual budget. If we can make these things happen and we've got a little extra and we feel comfortable going in throughout the year, we want to tap back into that. It's there, the community enhancements.
Minus 5,000. 5,000 is city. 3,000 is our miscellaneous, the other 2,000.
Okay, that's right.
I did call Ms. Davis to explain that I left
Okay.
it out, that the other 2,000 is let everyone else know, is our public notices that, but we're gonna come back and do a line
Okay.
item that says public notice, it won't be in
Okay.
miscellaneous, but I had to have somewhere to put it.
To put it,
It's
so-
what the GL for.
Yeah, so
Right.
we're gonna add.
And I remember you telling me that,
So
that
21 is.
it was kind of accounted for.
Cause I spent over 2,000 this year because we had an extra election. so.
Right.
So 21 of that is community enhancement.
26.
Okay,
So-
so,
So miscellaneous expenses includes the cost for elections?
no,
No.
just the notices.
Just the public notices.
Notifications.
All public notices, all public hearings for P and Z, election, anything like that.
And the
It's
only,
gotta go
the
in the
only
paper.
reason it's in there is there's not a GL for election.
But there will be for
Yeah.
this next
Put it
go
in.
round.
Next year, we're gonna make it.
Yes.
We will.
Less than the
This is what,
miscellaneous.
I just can't close it until the
Right.
last day.
Everybody knows how I feel about miscellaneous.
yes,
I know
well,
that.
Yeah, we
and
do.
you know what, I'm gonna invite you to come sit down with us and help us, because
Okay.
this is gonna all be reorganized so that, well, the taxpayers need to know what all of these things are too, without having to ask us. That's transparency, they deserve to know, I would wanna know what all of these categories are. So, that's admin. Does anybody have questions to stay here, can we move to development? Good? Okay. Is there anything else that you needed to explain or anything, Deidre? Okay, we're good. So let's go to development. All right, this is a short one. So salaries, there was some talk today, earlier today about why this went up so much. We went from one person to two, and our development director, previously when it was Noah, his salary was also split between the general fund with us and development and EDC. We cannot make those decisions for EDC. They will have to make those. That's something that will be on their agenda tomorrow to look at their budget. But right now, all of Eric's and Jamie's is combined together in development. Other than that, I don't really know where else we are supposed to cut. That is bare bones. Do y'all have any
Overall
questions?
Overall head count this time last year to right now.
You know, I started writing that down. It's in my spiral, but I think it's in my office. So we have,
We're doing more with less.
we're doing so much more with fewer people. Yeah, quite a bit. The one thing I didn't get a chance to show, and then maybe, I don't know, well, you don't have your computer in front of you, was the difference in what we're doing with, the other two comparisons is finance with what Lori was making and what we've spent with Eddie. Night and day.
Yeah.
We're not even close. And Eddie and Nicola had to go in and clean a lot of stuff up, including recovering all those files that were thrown in the trash. So, he really had a challenge, and, you know, it was a lot, so, but we saved a lot there too, so, we're not gonna pull in anybody in-house when we're getting it cleaned up, it's organized, we know where our funds are, we know where our balances are, we found it all. Now it's just making it a little bit more attractive for everybody to understand it, and we're gonna clean it up for William too, so he knows exactly what's in each category.
He's easily confused.
Cause he's still a little confused. Hey, I mean, it's better than our first workshop, remember? That was tough. That was a lot.
He wasn't here.
No, he was, that's
I
what he
remember.
talked about.
Bulldozers, tractors.
Steer truck.
steers.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
true.
that's right,
Skid
that's
steers.
right.
Yeah, some tweakers. Okay, tweakers. So, any questions from you guys on
I
development?
will never forget my tweakers.
Okay, let's move to parks. Oh, gosh. Okay, pretty minimal. Any questions on parks? Okay. We'll move to streets. Streets is interesting because literally the 2 days before our workshop was when we found out we did not have our bonds, $500,000 gone. And we've since found and confirmed in text pool, we have almost the same amount in water sewer that we can go then and transfer back. Remember, even in the budget that they published year before last, it said that they were going to absorb all the water and sewer related expenses and salaries and personnel through the streets fund. Well, I mean, that's just, anyway. We do have a water fund, we're gonna pay the streets back. Adam would be back, kind of just even keel. It's certainly not what he needs to do, but, we have to get residents, we've got to educate them that they understand to reauthorize our street sales tax that's on the ballot this year.
Cause that'll help the parks and the street.
It helps everything, there's so much need, I mean, Adam's got so many jobs to do, and,
That's
So
right.
right now,
Do it
your
for
That's
Adam.
like-
budget, Adam is looking for parks is $34,000. That
It's
we're
like
Posters
nothing.
made, do it for
up to
Adam.
approve.
There you go.
Yeah, so we need to educate
It's
the
like
taxpayer,
Ferris
we've had it
Bueller.
for 5 years, it expired, if we don't reauthorize the sales tax, this is one of the problems that we're gonna really, really struggle to overcome if we don't get those funds.
And you only
We
had
do.
19,000 last year to work with. For our parks, that's for our children to go out there and play, things to do.
That's right.
19,000 is what you had last year.
And you're taking care, I would argue this coming year, the budget is designed to more appropriately take care of what the city actually owns.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I just wanted-
there's no
choose to
extras in
buy
here either.
Yep.
So this is just bare minimum, what we've already kind of started. I mean, it's already committed.
Do we know how many children we have? Serious?
I don't have
I
any.
don't.
The only numbers you could get that I could give you later is in the contract with GYA, there is numbers for the associations that will know how many come through that side. But general recreation, no.
So we don't have any idea how many little feet are gonna be traipsing across the grass?
No.
Well, you do at the, maybe at the, a little bit of the elementary, because they do have their, playground over there instead of.
I haven't had this there.
But someday we gotta figure it out, because we gotta be able to know what to plan for.
That's
right?
420 kids.
Williams wanted to volunteer for a sixth grade girls soccer team.
I thought he said
We
lacrosse.
spoke,
soccer,
we
lacrosse.
spoke about it earlier.
All right.
Okay.
It's round.
Maybe it's the
Sixth grade
cricket
soccer,
fields I
and you
just
kick
heard
it.
about today.
It's round and you kick it.
So do you guys have any questions about streets in this budget?
Streets and parks. Is that all?
Streets,
I just moved
streets.
from parks and streets.
What we'll be
so-
doing is we'll be coming back, because since the mayor found the money where it's sitting in water, we're gonna bring that into the street fund, probably under just like the street general expense line, and then we will amend it into the proper lines later. Because it just came over, like
Which, by the way, speaking of budget,
proper street lines.
before the 299, we were at 5-ish, there's another couple $100,000 that we, do have to pay in principal and interest. It just doesn't come out of property taxes, it comes from your street tax. So,
That's correct.
if we don't authorize street tax, that 299 debt that we have will become 599, 2, 3, it'd be 499, right? It's like 515 or something, I don't remember what the first one was. And we had to go back and amend it because we realized that it didn't come out of property taxes. So if we do not get the reauthorization of the street tax, our debt will double, and that will affect property taxes. Absolutely, because it'll affect our budget again next year.
No, we don't want another one.
So, yeah, we don't need any more debt. And that's debt for the bond that's already been spent. We still have to pay for it another 17 years. It's gone.
Police?
Huh?
Which one are you going to now?
We're going to police. Okay, so, again, if, people are gonna question, okay, salaries, overtime, certification pay, payroll, health insurance, and TMRS. That is because we have a chief, a sergeant, and then we'll have a total of 8 officers instead of 6. We explained, why this was so important in our second 5-hour budget workshop. We were, officers can't be sick, they can't take time off, they can't go to training. We're depending and relying on the county too much, or we're just simply leaving our city unprotected at all. We have an amazing police department now with our 6 officers. We have changed, I know that Danny's talked about changing the culture within it, and I'll just leave it at that in case,
Well,
for now.
if we don't do this, we're gonna have burnout,
We're gonna have burnout,
you're gonna have guys working when they're tired,
that's right,
nothing good happens.
nothing good
Tired.
happens.
And the overtime was getting
Just
crazy
Yeah.
to the point that they were having
Yeah.
to almost go 4 and 6 hours without no one on them because the overtime was
Right.
just.
They have mandatory overtime and $20,000.
Yeah.
And that was,
Half an officer.
there were some of those reclassifications and stuff that was actually transferred over to cover some of that too. So you're not really seeing it so much in the budget, but it's something we have to overcome. Need our city safe, that's a need, that's not a want. Right, William?
Well, I'll ask the stupid question.
Okay.
I'm good at asking stupid questions. Hal's getting by on 3 officers right now. I don't know how they're doing it, but, no pun intended. But is there some possibility that we just don't have an officer 24 hours a day on duty? Is that a possibility?
I mean, we can talk to Chief about that again. We're actually at 6 now.
In other words,
We're back at 6 now.
what we wanna have and what we can afford to have aren't always the same thing. I think we have this discussion almost every week, and
Right.
if Al's doing it, and they haven't burned down.
William, let me ask you this.
They're 3,500 people versus our 25, so.
Let's say you have a heart attack and you call 911 and it takes them 20 minutes to get there because we don't have a sufficient police officers. Let's say the police officer's on another call or nobody's on duty. Is that acceptable?
I ain't saying it's good, I'm just asking how, is it possible, because.
I think Danny pretty much put it together that Monday through Friday, working just normal daytime hours is 3 officers.
Yeah.
So that means no nights, no weekends.
That's what I'm saying, is somehow Powell's getting by with 3 officers for a 3,500 population, and we're saying we've gotta have Cadillac with 3 officers for 2,500 population. Now, there's a certain inefficiency that goes with size, you can't really get around it, there's a minimum number of people you have to have a properly put together force, but still, all I'm asking is, if we can't afford it, because we've gotta pay back $2 million in sales tax, and we've lost other revenue, I mean, maybe there's some things we just gonna have to do without.
Well, look with Howe is not a main transport from south to north, like 289 is. People get off, yeah, that's 75, but they'll come off on 289 and come through with the truck traffic, the regular traffic.
We're sitting at an average of 25 to 30 tickets a day.
Yeah.
And we're talking people flying through our school zones, right here on 289.
So-
We've got some that were going down 121, that were doing 88 and a 55 in front of the
Right
bridges.
in front of the bridges.
It's
This is,
crazy.
this is one of the things that I had talked to Chief about a couple months ago is these trucks, watching the trucks.
I mean, don't get me wrong, just like I
Yeah.
said for the library, I love books and I love police, I think we can't have enough of either one, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, maybe we can't afford them right now.
Well, and Danny's even looking at having the cars being the Dodge Ram trucks that are much
To
less
save
than
some
the
money.
Tahoes, because that'll save money, and then outfitting them on top of that will also save money, because they don't have to outfit the whole thing. So Danny's been looking at other options too, to get his budget even less down there. He is saving some overtime, yeah, we're coming in with health insurance because we're adding more police officers, but at least then we have more here, because right now they don't pull anyone over
Do you
to
want to
90.
point out any of this?
So,
I'll tell you, and I'll share this with you too, William. I asked Chief to print this out today, because they're, okay, so going back to cleaning up the culture, holding officers at a higher level of accountability and looking at performance, activity out in the field, okay? We have some good officers who have come in and they are making a difference. And those that did not want to be accountable are no longer with us, okay? So I'll leave it at that. But I'd love for you to see this. Okay, Officer Barnes isn't here. I was thinking he's off today. He's a machine, writing tickets. He's a machine, but you know what? People are learning to slow down. These heavy trucks that are coming through here, you know, I mean, there's this way and this way. It's like one after another after another. And, we're stopping them and we're making a difference, so.
I haven't seen Officer Todd
Yeah,
sitting there by the
Keeping
school
them out
sign
from
during
going
school
down the
hours.
streets as much. We're
Kinda
trying
They do a little bit
to
with
do
that,
as
so.
much of that as possible.
I don't see it as a Cadillac, I think it's what we need for what we got. I mean, how, you said it, 75 goes right through the middle, they don't patrol 75.
Because DPS is
Yeah,
more
DPS.
prevalent on 75
We don't
than on
have
289.
a county sheriff that we're tapping into here, we don't have DPS that we're tapping.
Now, we can
into.
get DPS up here, because there was 4 of them on
We're not
289
big
in
enough.
Salina, but. yeah,
I know, you saw that too,
Yeah,
so
oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Salina's big enough now that they're doing some
starting to hit
patrolling
you
on
with
two
it.
eighty-nine.
Truck
Is it on
traffic,
the count on the city line all the time?
Yeah.
the truck traffic and other traffic is gonna do nothing but increase. And,
And
I can tell you this,
there's-
I don't wanna, 2 things, I don't want us to ever be exposed for when we don't have patrol, which happened this week. But I also, I don't want, I travel, just, and I know you travel. And, you know, this isn't it's a big ship to turn. If we go and we find out, hey, we need more police, I'd rather have a good foundation. And I think that's what we've got.
I agree. I need to say something, make sure that you all understand you're on the same page. In this budget is 8 officers total.
Total,
That
yeah.
includes
Yes,
Danny and
Yeah.
Karen and everybody.
yes.
Okay, and just to let you know, on the rental, at the bottom, the 10,400, 6,420, the 109, I forgot to let y'all know, the way Jeff had that put in with Enterprise, that also includes 3 non-police vehicles, but it's just the way they had to tie it in. That includes the public works truck, the fire battalion, and the fire chief. So that's all tied into one. So I
That's
don't want you to
something
think that whole 109 is all police, cause it's not.
That's something else Danny was looking at, is doing another different leasing, different company to
Right.
also save
And the
money
titles
than
are
Enterprise.
extremely expensive.
And it is a lot better
D&M
too.
leasing.
Yeah.
So,
And the trucks will save a lot.
Yes.
And it makes more sense because of our streets.
Just get keys.
Now, William, if Danny asks for a Bearcat, probably say, come on,
Or command center.
a command center,
Or command
a
center.
FEMA trailer, I'm having a little trouble with tractor that doesn't work.
Speaking of command center,
Oh, boy.
I did not put that in. We'll talk about it again. It's part of the budget. We'll talk about it again when we figure out what to do with it. Maybe that'll be on the 19th agenda. But you all gotta see the pictures.
I mean, at this point, we should sell.
And we're not
sell
gonna
it
get
for
the
scrap.
22 back that we spent. We'll be lucky to get 5 back. That we spent.
Wasn't it 22 on the truck alone?
No, it was both. It was 20,
22 for the truck, cause remember they spent 2,000 to fix
it
it
was,
up.
and it was
Right.
5 for
And
the
then it's
camper.
5,000 for the camper.
27,000.
And then I called them
You're right.
back and they said that, I said, is it roadworthy? And that's when she, called me back, she goes, well, the last time she checked with the fleet manager that it was at the time that we purchased it. I go, I need to know, we need to, can it drive it back, or do we have to have it towed? I've talked to 2 different people, and it's gonna cost us around 14,000 to tow it up here. It's lime green with flames, the camper's got a busted out window with a bowl. The hood's completely broke off, which of course, he wouldn't know anything about it anymore, but my dad, your headlights, everything's connected.
That's right. The
really-
gauges were falling out.
Yeah, it's bad,
It's really bad.
so, I don't know.
The other thing is
trust me,
too,
I've
we
seen it.
can't, that's right, Alan went to Houston, he
And
was
we
down there
don't have
working,
no
it
one
was
that can
it.
drive it, but 3 people from
You
the
can't, it's not
volunteer fire
drivable.
department, because they're CDL.
You
It's
can't
not
put it, you
drivable.
can't put it on a trailer because the truck is 12'6" by itself.
Yeah, so it has to be towed.
So it's a sound purchase.
It is.
Then
Yeah, we got,
What I'm hearing.
we got scrap, and we got a motor and some tires.
Yeah. And they want it off their lot, but we don't know what to do with it.
Can we donate it?
Yeah.
nobody
I don't know
wants
what
This
else
is
to do.
getting a little
Yeah.
off topic.
It is, so we'll talk
Let's
about
go
it.
back to the budget.
That's another, problem with our
That's
budget.
subject of the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's interesting, because somebody just texted me that in Texas, the officers per 1,000 residents, the average is 3.94. So, I mean, we're right there. For every 1,000 people in Texas, it's 3.93. So, food for thought.
We're under,
We're 2,500 and we're
yeah, we're under.
adding.
We need a half a copy of that.
When you think about it this way, the prior administration was very top heavy.
Yes,
Many boots on the ground,
right.
and we've kind of gone from top heavy to foundation heavy. And I think
Well, and that's the
we've got a
difference.
working chief, he's
Yes.
controlling our tickets.
Yes. And Sergeant Wilbanks as well, he just stepped out, but he's out all the time, they're not sitting behind a desk. Okay, so any other questions on police budget? Last is fire, and that's about as skinny as we could make it too. Thank God Captain Cameron came in and just did everything he could to pull it and gut it, and now obviously moving forward, here's what we don't have. A good solid plan to consistently update equipment and things that we're gonna need as we grow. That's my biggest problem with this budget, is that there's nothing left over to, William, for your example, is the kids, they're gonna need new clothes every day, they're gonna grow.
Yep.
We don't have a plan for getting them new clothes and new shoes.
And their clothes and your shoes have
Are
an
worn.
expiration date
That's
every
right.
10
They
years
do.
as well,
And they
so you
pulled
can't buy old.
26,000 out of that, which in
They did.
return caused them to only get half of the bunker gear, because the bunker gear you wear into a house fire is not the bunker
Totally
gear you
different.
wear to a brush fire.
That's right.
It has a
And they
shelf
do have
life.
an expiration, their helmets have an expiration.
You can't get bulk pricing, you have to only almost buy twosies here and there, you can't do 10 and just
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah.
so. We're at a disability on that one.
So, they do a lot with what little they have. Again, it's another rock star staff. We couldn't be any more solid, so adding the on-call incentive, since we don't have a paid fire department, to give some sort of an incentive so that they're here. Instead of driving in when we have an emergency, they're here. They stay in the bunk room, have snacks, hang out in here instead of being off-site.
And how many,
It
again,
just makes them want to do it.
local volunteers do we have, like a
24.
handful? That live in Gunter?
Not as many that live
The
here.
only ones that don't live here, I think, is 8 of them. But when I say don't live here, they're in Salina, they can come on calls, they just can't run code.
So the captain told me that most of them lived outside of Gunter.
Well, he probably meant by like me in our ETJ.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
That's probably what he meant.
Okay.
Well, and Cameron has his whole family, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Our
they're
captain
right
has
here.
his wife and all three of his boys that are.
But I will say,
here.
this will be your first volunteer fire department you've seen that just about everyone over there is volunteer, or is, certified, other than, I think there's 4, but they're working towards their EMT.
That's great.
And they're all here to volunteer, so if they're not EMTs, they're paramedics,
That's right.
so it's a big
So,
deal.
having just a little extra incentives, I think is important, because,
Not to get off track, what's the difference between an EMT and a paramedic?
As an EMT, I cannot, push the drugs
Paramedic.
and intubate, so.
You run paramedic.
When I have my heart attack.
You're gonna have your heart attack and there's no
Don't say that.
resource.
Well, that's
You
what,
want
that's what
the-
cities wish. Have a heart attack.
okay, we reviewed that right now, so you're not gonna have a hard time.
I don't
Okay,
think so, Doc said it.
I'm good with fire.
you guys good on fire?
Good.
Okay, that's pretty much it. I don't know that I don't think I missed any departments. I have them all pulled up.
The court, but it had nothing to.
That's right, yeah, the court's still
It's
minimal.
there.
Okay.
And we added code enforcement
The 3
potentially.
tickets.
Oh.
That's good.
Court
Code
is very
enforcement.
busy. I know Rebecca's like,
Code
No,
enforcement.
code enforcement.
oh, that's right, code enforcement. We added code enforcement, animal control.
Yep.
Your assistant city secretary, take some of that burden off of Adam.
Yep.
And me.
Back in the pants.
So,
I think, is that everything?
real quickly on the fire, I just wanna reiterate this, so we don't even have enough in the budget to pay a fire person $500 a month as an employee.
No,
I thought we had some
We don't.
on-call incentive.
We
It
have
was-
on-call incentives, yes, but I'm just making a note that we
It's
Don't even-
$50 a day for only 2.
We don't even have enough
That's
money
all that we can do.
to
Yeah.
pay a fire person a salary of $500 a month to work here. So, once again, reiterate to the public how
They're
skinny our
taking
money
for the
is.
team.
That's something I brought up, whatever that Saturday was, that long Saturday.
we did that first one, I had a fire marshal
This is
in
just
the
a-
budget to try to go that direction, but then we pulled it out because of all the craziness with our numbers being upside down, then we worked through it, got back to
Well,
here.
Fire marshal we need for codes, but for the,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a festering problem that's gonna have to be dealt with.
Yeah.
We're going to need a full-fledged fire department eventually, and it eventually isn't very far around the corner. We're probably already past it, but
That is something that we talked about. I know Wade, you were there when we talked about that with Captain Cameron. Alan, you were there too. I think all of us at some point were in there with his tour and everything, when we toured the fire department, that's a direction we have to start going, is we have to think about right now how to move toward that. And the good thing is he was there when Frisco moved from volunteer to paid, so.
He was also mentioning how, you know,
Yep.
if a business came in and donated a fire truck, that's great, but there's only 4
Yep.
people that
You
can
need
drive
people.
those
Yeah.
rigs, and
Well, where you're going to start
Human
considering your
capital.
talks is gonna be for your, we're doing 24, 25, so it'll be 25, 26, is how much longer is Grayson County gonna help us pay for EMS?
Right, because
We cannot lose that.
that's on our next agenda too, because they did renew our ILAs. That helps us with budget,
Thank God.
because that would have been a nightmare to have to figure out, so.
Hey, more challenges.
No, so highlights, I think we touched on them, our 2 new police officers, our incentives, assistant city secretary, code enforcement, animal control. Our challenges were the loss of the sales tax that we're paying back, the loss of the street bonds that were spent actually before Adam was ever hired in 2023. We overcame that with the water fund that we're gonna pay it back with. But, you know, something important to note is the loss of future water sewer revenue and control, which negatively affects, this is our challenge in development, because we don't have any control over, when development comes to us, they get hung up in water and sewer. That's their challenge. And, that's a problem, because we're losing out on the revenue and the control.
now, do we have the contract that was done between us, Gunter, and Mustang to see what the payment was? Cause everyone's throwing out there, oh, we got paid 9 million, where's it at?
No,
We didn't really get paid 9 million
No,
up front.
no, they took,
they took all the bonds.
the majority of that is the debt
Mhm.
that they're paying back. So,
Okay. Just
So,
wanna let
yeah,
that be
it
out there in the
really-
world.
it's tough. I mean, Eric and I, do you wanna say anything about that? It's tough.
Number one challenge.
Well, I would say it's tough for new development, but we're also having issues with existing development that started in the interim in between the transition.
Right.
And we have a project going right now that's been snake bit on a lot of different levels that we're trying to get accomplished and done. And now we're having discussions with Mustang on not making them spend another $40,000 to $50,000 retrofitting the manholes to Mustang standards as opposed to what they were approved at when they were the city standards, and they still function right. So we're in discussions to try to go ahead and make it private like it probably should have been in the first place. But there's, you know, those types of issues out there that the SUD is requiring, you know, higher standards and not grandfathering anybody at this point. So that's something we'll talk about the city attorney tomorrow as well. But new development has issues because the infrastructure is not out there, and SUD's, you know, asking developers to put it in order to do the development, which only exasperates the development process because of the cost of the land to begin with. So.
Another crazy question, has anyone asked Mustang if they're willing to undo that agreement and go back the way things were and give us our water back? And ask them what to do?
I think there are days that they would be like, do it.
There are days, I mean, if you take.
This is definitely not
We're
on our
going further
agenda,
off.
we've gone a little too
Yeah.
far,
But our
sorry
budget-
guys.
Our budget wouldn't allow it,
Come
so.
on, Wild Bill,
That's-
you wanna hold back?
Councilman, I'll answer your
It does
question.
affect
No,
our
you
budget.
will not.
Later.
Okay.
Later.
Later, yes. So it does affect our budget,
I didn't say right now.
not having that
Grab
revenue.
your
But we're also not cleaning up a problem, so,
Let's put that on
for another day, we can thoroughly discuss that on another day. So anyways, that's the highlights, our challenges. Now we're at our budget decisions and adoption part of the, presentation, but I'm gonna open up public hearing on this subject. Public hearing is open at 7:02. I know that I had one sign up, that was Vanessa.
And Sue's giving me her 3 minutes as well.
Okay, sure, come on up.
Okay. Vanessa Unger, 1921 Bledsoe. So I apologize that I couldn't make it to the budget meeting. I had some other stuff going on, but so I do have a few questions. One, the legal fees that you showed, that Excel spreadsheet, is that something that was included in the packet? I didn't see it.
No.
Okay, can we do like a PIR for that? Okay. And then I noticed a lot of money, around $206,000 across the whole budget related to professional services and contract services. And many of those are a pretty significant increase over last year's budget. For example, the contract services under streets is going from $55,000 to $120,000. can you help me understand, one, what's the difference between, what is professional services, what is contract services, and what is driving, like, a huge increase across all of those?
Okay, keep going, and then as soon as we're done,
Okay.
we'll wrap it all up and answer all your questions. So contract
You
services.
mentioned on the cement batches, that obviously we've got $1.9 million to pay back. I understand that, that's about $19,791 a month over 96 months. I'm assuming there's some sort of interest in their fees, I don't know, that's an assumption on my part. However, it didn't seem like the math was adding up, so, like, I think all of us would like to understand that better, including your guys' self, so that's more of a comment. But one thing that I'm confused about is when you were talking about it, you guys were discussing like it's almost like a double penalty, like we're also not getting that money, but we annexed them in. So we've corrected that problem. We are getting that money. We may not be seeing it right now because right now it's going back to being paid to this $1.9 million, but it's not like we're not getting it at all and we're paying back money, correct?
I can address that. So
Okay.
I want you to keep going through and I'll answer all these.
All right, sorry, let me just find it. Under miscellaneous, it mentioned something around library and chamber. Could you talk about like how much for library, how much for chamber? In streets, it talked about 202, I think this meant 2021 CO principal went from 0 to $150,000. So I don't know what that was about. And then the last thing, and this is more of a comment, we're 57 days away from election. You guys are putting a lot on this street and this MDD, but you've done zero marketing. Voters, there's a lot of studies on this. Voters tend to not approve something that they do not understand. With 57 days left, if these are things that you really are hoping are gonna get approved, I highly recommend that you guys start getting very busy on how you're gonna market and help the voting population understand why these things are good. Because right now there's a ton of negative stuff out there and not enough positive things being shared with the community. So that's it.
Okay. All right, so you have plenty of time left to use Sue's as well. So let's go to contract services. Actually, you know what, let me pull that up. We made a list of those too, and I had it at the last workshop, but I don't have it with me right now. So there's contract services and then there's professional services. I can't tell you exactly which one is itemized in one because they were changed around a
Are
couple
we talking
times.
about streets?
Well, in streets it said contract
general.
services and everything
Contract
else
services
it
is the
said
mowing
professional.
crew.
It's the what?
The mowing crew. is
Co-
in
so the
that.
From
contract
55 to 120,000?
Well, let me explain. So in contract services, and William had some input on this
Because
too.
I'll have my husband come mow for that, for real.
It's,
A little
no,
bit more than that.
It's a lot.
it's not that. So we moved some of it to contract services. William wanted it, he discussed about, he wanted to know exactly, just put it in the area, not so much who was doing, but what was being done, I believe was correct.
Right.
So we may change that back, that was sort of in flux. It's the same pool, they're all contract services.
It's all the same.
Whether it's, in other words, it is contractors doing your street projects. That's the contract services. The difference was I was trying to break out things that were assigned to what I'd call a regular cycle, such as the mowing that was occurring, and then the anticipation that I was gonna use some contractors for, certain sections of street repairs.
County
Um,
Rhode Island.
So are
But
you
it's this-
saying that it's the $120,000 is like a net, like there's no actual change? You had it like
It was in a
broken
different
out and
line
now you're
item.
bucketing
It was
it
just
up?
that's all it is, it was a
Okay.
different line item. And contractual services aren't professional services, cause those are specifically to engineering and attorney's fees. Those are the primary for professional services. So I would use professional services, I didn't include those in the budget, because it's sort of hard for me to estimate the professional services.
It is.
It would have to be an amendment from the another line for the professional services.
And when you say mowing, because I know I thought the same thing, we can just mow it ourselves. No, it's like the trees, what is it, off of Bledsoe, they mow
Well,
the
it's-
trees off of.
It's
Yeah,
all
most
city
of
property.
There's that.
It's a lot.
most
Yeah.
of your
It's the
park
industrial.
maintenance, it's on the contract side, your irrigation's on the contract side. as
No,
most cities
No,
have gone
we're
to
not
those.
spending $120,000 on mowing.
No, you're not.
No.
Not just that, but it's.
Just so that everyone in the
No, you're
recording.
not.
Well, it's
knows.
23
Don't
square
have-
miles.
And then like the extra
Your
trees
husband
that
wants
we
to
added
pony
to the
up on
park, that
We'll
cost
take the offer.
irrigation and
Accept it.
services.
Well, and everyone was making comments about how they love the ditch line from 289 all the way to the railroad.
Yeah.
That was
That's
part of it.
The other thing too, Vanessa, is that under contract and professional services, and I can't tell you which is in which category, but those two together, there were some attorney's fees in there that we had to pull out. It was the way Lori was putting it in. Now it's strictly attorney's fees, so that people can start seeing, you pull it up, it says attorney's fees, you don't have to go digging in professional and contract and pulling it back out to put it in one category. That will clean itself up this year. But professional and contract also is our engineers, it's our,
Finance guy.
it's the finance, it's, the IT, it's our website.
It's everyone that we
It's
third party.
everything else that we contract out. They're not on staff where they have benefits and everything, but they're contracted. So it's a lot, actually. So every time, part of that was the county too. When we contract with the county, when we contract with the, other entities, the GIS, that's in their contract services or professional, it's one of the two. So, I can get a list of that for you if you'd like, because I do have that. I prepared it for our budget workshop, I just don't have it with me right now. So,
Yeah, and I'll add to that, I've had an endless nonstop complaint that I don't like categories that say how you're paying somebody. I wanna know what
What
they're
it was
getting paid
for.
for.
Yeah.
I don't care how they got paid, you wrote them a check, you gave them a bag of cash, I wanna know what it was for.
Yeah.
So, I'm right there with you, I never liked that category.
well, and none of us did.
Professional services isn't a good category either, unless you're only talking about lawyers, engineers, and accountants, and you should break those three out. Everything else
Right.
is some kind of outsourcing, and you should list it, IT, whatever it is. So I will renew my objections to all those budget line items, because I don't like them.
And I will say what I
We're
said
gonna clean it up.
earlier, is that not all lawyers will qualify for professional services.
Okay, so, the sales, doing the math. Okay, so this was on the sales tax that we lost. Okay, and this is what I was just asking Deetra. Eddie put it in there that, and I'll just say for the record, I'm looking at everything in Fund View, but Eddie and Deetra are working on it on a daily basis during our whole budget creation, and then they were asking me, what do you wanna do with this? And I was asking questions, what does this mean? So I did not want to physically touch anything, cause I didn't wanna be accused of sabotaging something, so I don't touch Fund View. I can view it though, but I don't change anything. We are gonna start changing things now that it's all kinda settled and we have a history of what was there. We will move forward and do it. So I have a question, as you do, on the sales tax, how the controller's office is pulling that out. Because it should be the 17,000 plus whatever they changed it to once the 250 was changed, but it doesn't add up to me either.
Well, but
I don't have the
also,
folder in here.
not every cement batch plant that was erroneously being collected is annexed in, have they?
All three properties have now, but they also said it would take time. It's just like the MDD. If we convert, it will be June of next year before they have that in our system where they start paying us. Same thing with the annexation. It didn't happen the next month.
Yeah, can I just say something? So the $19,791 a month equals $237,000 a year, but the budget went down significantly less than that. So like, if you guys kind of do the math, that just doesn't make sense, because we are getting the cement batch plant money now. And yes, we're having to pay that back, but the difference just does not add up.
Well, Vanessa, the batch plants, it's not like a line item where they're gonna sell $50,000 worth of cement every single month. They're gonna have projects that's gonna go up and
Right.
down, and it's gonna be a percentage of that, and that's why it wobbles. But
Yeah,
Can you see this right here?
You're not gonna have a static number of sales every month.
no, I understand that, but I'm
I
giving
know
you like
I've
an
done
annual
that.
number, and the annual number, we lost 583,000.
Correct.
But we should only be paying back $237,000.
That's what I was
a year.
explaining. I think that without seeing the description, I think the market came down as well. So it's kind of a double whammy.
But that's just an assumption,
We're
correct?
losing it. Well, I mean, it's right there in black and white. Look, you were making,
Well, no, I'm not trying to be rude, you guys.
No,
I
I
mean,
know
the
that.
cement batch, they're like supplying all of the Dallas tollway right now.
that's what we're saying.
I don't think cement is
Look at this
like
column.
going down.
Yeah, but it's lumpy. It's,
See the
you're not gonna
trend?
sell the same amount
What
every
was that
month.
showing up there when I
And
did it?
selling to the Dallas Tollway is selling to a city project that doesn't collect any
Yeah,
sales.
12 other batch plants between here and Dallas.
This column here, my mouse isn't showing it. Do you see this right here? 164,000, 193, 179, 142. This is where they stopped. I don't know what happened here, cause to me, 117 to 74, I don't know, maybe that's when, you know, they stopped giving it to us. It was more like around here that they started giving it back, but I don't know how they're taking it out, because first there was the 1.7, now it's at 2 million.
When did they annex in? What point
They annexed in September of 2023, so here.
But
Here.
after they annex in, it's not an immediate collection.
Right.
When does the tax money start showing up after the annexation?
We started getting statements in November, right? So that would be here where the 103 is. But now look, it's so much less than it was here. Part of that could be they're not selling as much concrete. You know, they're not producing as much, they're not selling. But a good portion of that is what the state has taken out. They don't tell us what they're taking out. I don't know because it's not on our statement. So I have
It's
a
hard
call
to
in.
budget fluctuations.
I have a call into Shirley because we deserve to know what we're supposed to be giving and who's paying taxes and who's not. We have companies that aren't paying taxes.
Well, and we should know, I mean, I know how much if I don't have a car
How
loan,
much
but if
you're
I had a
paying
car loan, I know exactly how much my car loan is.
That's
every
right.
month.
It's gonna be
We
the
should
same
know
every
what it
month.
is.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Now, because it's sales tax, every single company has to report sales tax every single month. Even if it's a zero, they have to report zero. Then you have all of those, let's say there's 50 of them. I don't know how many there are, it's a lot. Let's just say there's 50. They all have those variances. Maybe they didn't sell as much. Maybe they knocked it out of the park, right?
March and
It's
April is a
seasonal.
perfect example.
It's seasonal, but that's why I put this chart together, and anybody can go to mycpa.cpa.state.tech, all this right here, and you can pull up everything for yourself. You can look at Salina, they're bringing in almost $1 million in sales tax every month. That'd be nice. We're not, but these are the actual numbers that we are bringing in, and these numbers here match what they're paying us. So on their end, I don't know what they're taking out.
So are they taking out a flat amount or is it a percentage of?
It's something different.
It's different every
And all
month.
I'm asking is that we find out.
We're at,
Right,
yes, I'm actually waiting for Shirley to get that information to me. So, Cots at the controller's office. So, as soon as I know more, you're happy to have this chart, I will give you this chart, so you have it, but anybody can go to the controller's side, plug it in, and you're gonna see every single one of these numbers. They do it by annual year, I did it by fiscal, see how it starts October down? That's how I know, every year when we were looking at budget years past, somebody should have noticed this as a problem. Someone should have noticed this, like, hey, what the heck is going on, right? I would have, I did. So all of this, it's really easy to see that trend, that totally, it perfectly matches up with our fiscal year. To me, that's a huge red flag. I don't know how you look at that any different than what it is. But yeah, I mean, whatever we're paying in is our loss, which I calculated to be around, somewhere between $300 to $360 a year is what we're losing paying back. I think in addition, obviously, if we've lost 583 this year, that means sales aren't as good as they were for whatever reason. I don't know why. I think it's just sales are down. I don't know. You don't get to go in, I'll tell you what they won't give you. They won't give you an exact business's sales. They'll give you a chart and whether or not somebody paid or not. But you don't know how much, or you don't know if they didn't sell. Maybe they have a permit, but they didn't sell anything. It's a zero. All you can do is tell the controller's office and they'll go and research it. They won't tell you what they find out. I mean, and that's a privacy issue. If I wanna know what 10 businesses total sales are, I have to give them
I feel like we're going like way off into the yonder. I'm just asking that we
Well,
find
that's
out
where it
what
is.
our repayment plan
We
is, and then
answered,
it's
yeah.
like,
We're gonna find
Yeah,
out.
we're
yeah,
gonna
I
find
know,
out.
and my
Wait.
point is, we've talked about this
Yep.
for 10 minutes now.
Okay, so the annexation, yes, they're annexed in. The miscellaneous, we explained that a little bit earlier, that 5,000 of that is city, the rest of it we put aside for chamber and library as a starting place. Doesn't mean they get it all today, it may mean that they get it throughout the year, or they don't get it at all.
It wasn't for chamber and library, it was just.
It was for
501(c)(3)s.
all. That was just an example.
That
And
was
we
an
had a
example.
request from another nonprofit as well.
Oh, I'm sure there's lots of.
So we don't know how that's being broken out right now, the remainder, is that what you're saying? Out of
Right now it's
the,
in there as their 8220, right? Their
Yes.
minimum, and, yeah,
We're
Sorry,
not-
what was
We're not
it?
gonna shut down the
8220
library.
for library.
Yeah.
On that one deal.
that keeps their,
Accreditation. We're
yeah,
not shutting down the
accreditation.
library.
okay,
We
and
haven't
then
defunded the
I'll break the news to TK.
the,
So what about the chamber? We haven't decided on.
We haven't decided.
we haven't either, so all that money's just set aside so that when we get the contract ready to go, we'll come back out in an open meeting. This is the contract and this is what we're offering. But it's earmarked for
So
if
the
we can,
only
if we
501
feel good about doing it, we can do it,
So the only nonprofit that we've earmarked any money for at this point
is the library.
Is the
Yes.
library to keep their accreditation.
But you said we have another.
Yeah,
There was another request.
Grayson County MHMR.
is that 8,220?
I think that was what it was, 8220,
8220.
I think so. You had a question on,
Can I add something real quick?
Yes.
While we're talking about the library?
yes,
I, reached out to Optimum, the job I asked for. I can't remember his name. He acted like he had not talked to anybody. I went through the entire conversation. He transferred me to someone else. They would not, confirm or deny what they could or could not do. They said it would require, the library is the 501(c)(3) to call if this is what they wanna do. Then they'll let me know and we'll take them off fires. It was the most frustrating conversation I've ever had, and I couldn't get nowhere. Porter, that was his name.
Porter.
He, I think is that who you had talked to, or someone from the
I
library?
don't remember the name, I mean, we sent you an email.
That was
with his
him.
information.
Okay,
and
that's who I
everything.
called, and I told him, you had spoke with him, I spoke with him, he wouldn't give me anything, transferred me to someone else, so now it's gonna be back, he wouldn't do anything. They said it was gonna require for y'all to call and then see, and I said,
But
well,
we
they
can't-
said it was
We can't
$80.
remove ourselves from the city.
Well, I know you can, but they won't let me call on your behalf, they would not give me no information.
Well, and that's interesting because they told us, because the contract is owned with the city, that the city would have to fill out some type of form, which would transfer it to us as an individual, as a private business. And then the new rate would be that $80,
Yeah.
which would be a reduction.
No, they wouldn't give me anything.
I'll find the form.
Okay, marketing for the streets in MDD, we're working on that, like, right now, ASAP. We've just been kind of crazy busy with budget and on it, and there's a lot going on, so we are working on that. Got a template, everything, it's being worked on. Streets, you asked me a question about streets, and I didn't finish writing it down.
You asked about
The
the CO,
co-principal, yeah, what is that?
certificate of obligation,
Certificate of obligation, so,
bond. Yeah.
Why did it go from 0 to 150K?
I don't know.
that may be an Eddie question, I'll have to get back with you, because
Where'd you say that at?
streets,
In the streets
So there's
budget,
streets, there's last year was nothing, and this year there's something.
They may
150K.
have prepaid it. I don't know, but they may have prepaid that debt,
Or they may have just.
or they may not have paid it at all, and that's,
and then it's there.
8103.
I just know what it is, I don't know the history.
but yeah, it's a certificate of obligation.
Eddie may have moved it over,
That's what amendments are for.
so,
Cause there's principal and then there's interest
Could
over
that-
zero amount.
Could that be any bond transfer from water sale into the streets, since the water department doesn't exist
possibly,
anymore?
but there was more. There was more that I asked him to transfer over, so I've gotta find out. So the street CO, I'll find out for you, Vanessa.
Okay.
And then whatever you wanted from this, send that over to Deidre and I'll get it for you.
Okay,
Everything
that's
we've shared today is totally, I'll just send you the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so, was there anybody else, I didn't have anybody else signed up for item number 4. That's it?
Oh, I know what this was. They literally, for some reason, got left off the budget. That is the principal and interest
what I
that we'll be
thought.
paying throughout the year.
For the CO.
So it wasn't
For the CO
on
bond.
last year's, and what was the amount?
It's probably the 2021 bond.
The principal is $150,000 and the interest is $22,000.
That's what it is.
118.
That's
what I
exactly
thought
what it is,
but I just
because
wanted to-
originally,
They didn't put it in the budget.
well, originally, he put it in to be, it's supposed to be in the budget, but it wasn't supposed to be
No, it
in the
wasn't put in,
property
it wasn't
tax.
in the 23-24. They must have had it somewhere else and it's supposed to be, because we
Oh.
put it where
It
it
was in a
belongs.
different line item.
Weird, it's over
Yeah.
the head.
So that is the,
It's
that's
our
the
bond
transfer
payment that
over.
has to be paid.
We still have to pay for it, but it's already spent.
So it wasn't really a zero last year.
It
Yeah,
was just
Should've
somewhere
been.
else.
it should have been a zero last
Somewhere
year.
else, yeah.
It's probably
Um,
hanging up.
It was just missing.
And I wanna
Okay.
make sure everybody understands that we can amend this budget at any time during the year. We can move things around, we can amend the budget if we come into more money somehow.
Or we find out we're not spending this
find out
amount of
we're not
money
gonna spend
in this area, cause
Correct.
we already saw that some of the stuff we saw, we're like, what are we spending at right now? And we were like, what, 50,000 less than
Yeah.
what we needed, and we only have 3 more
Well,
months
you
to
have
go.
3 new businesses. You have O'Reilly's, you
Yes.
have
Yeah.
25th, you have a new Mexican restaurant. They could all come up and y'all
We
can come
talked
back and
about
go,
that.
hey, let's look at the amendment. Let's give the fire department back that 26,000, let's give them bunker gear. That's the whole purpose of an amendment.
We
Yeah.
can always back off of the increase in property tax as well.
Cause how many,
Well,
how
here's
many
Yeah,
times
so we
do
can always
we
give money
look
back
at?
to the taxpayers too. Don't
Here's
forget
the-
That's, we're gonna talk about that on the 19th,
This-
yes,
this
we're
is
gonna talk
the-
about that.
This is
Don't take
the
it the
big
first place.
difference, though. This city has never done a monthly or quarterly budget
Yeah.
review, ever.
We will be doing it
And that's gonna be part of our protocol.
routine, yes, yes.
Cause then we can see if we're on target
Because
to
you
spend that
can't-
much, or over, or hey, we're way
Yeah,
under.
you can't do amendments unless you're doing that, so.
Yeah.
Right, right. No, we will be, on a monthly basis, doing just kind of a general, we'll do like on a quarterly, we'll do a more
And
in-depth.
that'll be coming from Eddie and not me.
It'll probably be coming from me too, because we'll have this cleaned up and it'll be a matter of running a report. Okay, so we are closing public comments at 7:25 and we have item agenda number 4.
Mayor, I just wanna make one
Yes.
comment, because I wasn't clear on what Councilmember Davis said about you can always amend your tax rate. Is that what you
No.
said?
The budget.
No,
But
you
no,
set your
tax rate
tax
is the tax
rate for the
Based.
year. Your tax
Yes.
rate will not change until the next year. I
So-
just wanna clarify that.
so
Your
if-
tax rate is what it is. We're not talking about tax rate, but just for clarity,
Yeah.
whatever you set the tax rate is at, that is what it will be for the year.
Okay, I didn't
So
understand.
I have a
That's why I
question.
want to be so clear on whether we need this stuff in the budget or not, because it's not like you can go back to the taxpayers and give them back the money.
Right.
All we can do is wait till next year to reduce the rate.
Correct.
But just because we end up finding out that we had money we didn't need, doesn't mean we need to go off and find something else to
No,
spend on.
no.
No,
We hang on to it,
absolutely not,
Use it
no.
for surplus for next year and reduce the tax rate.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, this, if we do it right, we're gonna
Then I
be set up
misunderstood.
really well for 26.
So, I lost my train of thought.
So before it's in effect though, can we rescind it,
No.
the tax
No.
rate?
So Dennison was it Dennison
Dennis,
that went back and adjusted theirs?
but they went up. That was outside of their normal budget. They asked for 6 more cents.
Right.
That it was-
Now, how did they do that? Because they had already said it.
I
don't
do
know.
not know how they did that.
Should be able to
Okay.
do
When
that.
did they do it in
Just like
the middle of
recently.
a year?
Just recently.
No, they set their tax rate just recently. They came back in, I guess maybe because the deadline's
Before their
not
tax
the
rate went
30th.
into effect? Yes,
Yes.
this is for their next year's tax rate.
So we're
Yes.
setting,
Okay,
so we're setting next year's tax rate, can we come in
Right.
and back it off before the tax rate is effective?
before it becomes
We can't.
effective, but it becomes effective,
January 1.
I thought my,
It'll pay out January 1st.
I'll have to double check to see what day you could change it, but it's a very complicated process to amend your tax rate once you adopt it. So
More
as
complicated when you
William
take
said,
it up.
it's
Then down.
better to hold it.
Yeah.
And use it, and then be able to reduce your tax rate the following year.
Okay, thank you.
My concern with the budget is the street tax. If it's not authorized, we're in trouble if we don't cover it.
And we've got signs for that as well as the MPD that we're trying to
Yes,
push
we
out.
have like a template for, information to go out to all the voters.
And then
How
the
do
other
you guys
thing,
help me with that?
also to add to that, Vanessa, I mean, the public, I'm still a big advocate. The public can come in here, ask those questions.
I
That's
know,
even
but they're
better.
not going to, and that's why you gotta, you guys have to do the work.
I
You can't
understand that.
expect them to do that, you have to hand feed it. I know that's
And
frustrating,
we will.
but that's how we've got, voter apathy is a huge problem in our society.
And we have
And we
people
have
that
to
are
contend
spreading
with that.
misinformation around town as well about things.
I know, that's why you guys gotta overcome that.
So,
But we gotta.
It's
play with that,
frustrating.
so.
Okay, so we are on number 4, discuss, consider, and act upon an ordinance adopting the proposed budget.
I move we adopt the proposed budget.
I'll second.
Okay, Cindy with a first, Wade with a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I didn't hear you, Wade. You wanna go?
That's because I haven't said an answer yet. I still don't like it.
Is this roll call?
This is a roll call vote.
Oh,
Yeah, it will be, so I'll let you go back. Okay, so,
I still have a lot of concerns about this budget, the details and the miscellaneous categories and the contract services. So I'm not in favor of the budget the way it's put together, no.
is there something that you want us to change?
Yeah, I like details with categories that have names you can understand and everything I've said before.
With some municipality is
Okay.
different than your home budget. And we're gonna argue that one, because there are certain categories that's in our fund view, it's there for a reason. Now, at any time, if you go, hey, Deidre, what all was in professional services, I want to fund you, click it, and it will list you everyone
Yeah.
that I paid under professional services and what we paid them
And what we
for.
paid for.
And we
I
can,
can't
Would
go
like
and
to
have a
see
line
those-
item that says
would like to
groceries,
see
because we
those
don't do
before.
groceries.
we can clean that up, but is there something on each of those departments? We printed it all out. Is there something that you want to know that's different? I can't fix the semantics of it tonight,
Yeah, I know. But I don't, still don't like it. so
but
I'm
it
still
doesn't
voting no.
change the substance.
You wanna see the high dollar? No?
Okay.
Separate.
So I have a first with Cindy to approve, a second with Wade. We're gonna do a roll call vote. Cindy Davis.
yes.
Okay, Alan Richards.
Yes.
Dave Self.
Yes.
And Wade Burnsville.
Yes.
And the
William
lone-
Stevens.
The lone voice in the wilderness, no.
Okay. All right, so the motion still carries, that budget is adopted. We are going to move to number 5, council business executive session pursuant to chapter 551 Texas Government Code. Council's gonna convene into executive session at 7:31 under 551071, consultation with our city attorney over our ongoing BNSF litigation. We will be doing this every single meeting, you guys. I did close the public hearings. You got that time too, right, Deidre? All right, so phones to Deidre. Pass mine here.
Guess we'll see you guys tomorrow.
No,
Adam, are you gonna stay in here?
Sure.
Just for you guys up there, if you
You
play
need me to?
football and you got Christian McCaffrey, he's not playing.
Really?
Yeah, he's
Yes.
out. Who is? Christian McCaffrey.
Number 1, arguably number 1 and number 2.
Right. Running back in the NFL, out, ruled out for the game.
Do you want me to, do I stop this streaming right now? Of course.
Christian McCaffrey, he's out. He's the running back. Used to be Carolina.
I'd go in there and I take the total that the comptroller gives me. I take that figure and I put 25% to EDC, 25% to streets, and then 25 or 50% to the